No, I didn't. Oh, no. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're on the same page with that.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us and doing your bio consultation today.
Definitely. Glad to help.
Yeah, we'll just wait a few more minutes for others to pop on, and then we can get started.
Okay. Are you moderating?
Yes, Julian's out of town, so.
I didn't know who. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I just talked to her actually.
Oh, yeah. Is she relaxing?
She enjoyed her birthday, which was 2 days ago.
Good. I'm glad she's having a good time.
She deserves it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she needs some rest.
Are you downstairs in the
Oh, in the bullpen.
bullpen?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is my spot now.
Is anyone else even in there anymore?
There's Keisha just came in today, but most of the time, no.
Okay.
Yeah. We just meet.
Peace and quiet.
Yeah, yes.
It wasn't that long ago that I was there sitting with you, so.
Uh-huh. I just closed the door because the Achiever team is down here. So I just close the door, plug my headphones so I can focus. Mm-hmm. Hi, Stetson and Neil.
Anyone else joining us?
There was one other person that I just admitted, but I think she left. But that's okay. We can.
Hey,
Oh,
Neil.
hi.
Here I am.
Hi.
Hello.
Well, we can go ahead and get started. So Chris, why don't you tell our participants a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Van Zant. Hope you're all doing well. Been in the business for 2.5 years. I started in April of 2018. And I set a couple goals for myself when I started. One was win Rookie of the Year. One was make ALC. I was blessed to have both those things happen. So it was Rookie of the Year for 2019. And then I'm on ALC this year. I'm on the Growth Committee. And I'm also proud to be part of the new Diversity and Inclusion Committee, which just started up a few months ago. I'm always looking for people to be active in that committee. So if you want to be a part of Quan, not just come to team meetings, but actually be a part of what the decisions are made and kind of improving agents and conversations, we love to have more people involved. So I'm blessed to be involved. I made that a goal of mine to do it. And I achieved it through coaching, honestly. Through Arthur and Julianne, I went to everything possible. Things like this that used to be in person, I went to all of them. So now I'm honored to teach them as well.
Thank you for that. And I guess you can just go ahead and start with whatever you normally do for your buyer's consultation.
Well, the good part about buyer consultations is they can take place over the phone. I mean, I know with the listing is just so different because it's just arranging to meet and to talk and setting a time, but buyer's consultations happen instantaneously. And now with the power of Zoom or FaceTime or whatever platform you use to connect, essentially you can set a buyer's appointment instantaneously. And I encourage you to do that. I don't wait. If someone wants to talk that day, do it. Don't put it off until a weekend, until another day. Carve out 30 minutes. People are joining, so if you want to, I can wait a second. Yep, there we go. Neil, Stetson, Jen, and an unknown. So the question was about my buyer presentation. What do I do? I was saying don't wait. The minute you know someone wants to talk about buying a house, I call that day. I do not wait. I don't put it off, and I schedule something as soon as possible. When are you off work? When's your lunch break? What can you fit in today? The sooner you start that conversation, the easier it is for them to, one, you can start answering questions and run their time frames, but two, they trust you to work with you. So for me, the question I always ask everyone I talk to is, what's your goals? What's your time frame? Are you looking? I always say this. I always ground myself. I do this a lot. And I'll say, my goal is not to sell you a house this week, this month, or even this year. My goal is to help you on your timeline. When helping buyers, the most important thing is learning what is their schedule, because there's a lot of things to go through. Are they first-time home buyers? Do they understand the process? Are they pre-qualified or pre-approved? They even talk to a lender. Do they even know what that even means? So really, kind of when you start talking to a buyer, it's learning where they're at in the process and asking a lot of questions. For every question I ask, it pops up 2 or 3 more in my head. And I always have a pad, paper, and a pen to write things down. I'm furiously jotting notes down. In fact, sometimes when they're talking, I'll say, if you don't mind, when you're speaking, if I'm not replying back right away, especially if they're on a Zoom call or I'm looking down, I go, I'm not ignoring you. I'm writing down what you tell me, so later on I can remember the important things. So, like I said, the first question I ask is, what's your time frame? What's important to you? And what that answer is dictates everything. Because if they say now, well, then your conversation is entirely different. You're asking questions like talking to a lender. Are you renting? Do you need to sell to buy? Questions like that. So the first thing I do is when I find out their time frame, I say, great, why is that important to you? Because it's one thing to say, I want to move now. Well, why now? Is now because their their lease is ending? Then you get a kid in a school district by a certain time? Is there going to be in a house before the holidays that they want to have family come down and see the new house before the holidays? Whatever it might be, the question is why? Why is that important to you? And that might lead to another question. Well, school starts soon. Well, great. What schools are you looking to get into? Was your kid going to go to, Walton or Pope or Lassiter or Woodward or Woodstock? And learning kind of what's important. And as they answer those questions, you'll learn maybe kids' ages or other things that are kind of go along. And I haven't even gotten to size of the house yet. I haven't even gotten to how much money they want to spend. I've not even dove down to those questions. I purely just want to learn motivation. When you learn motivation, that dictates basically every other step of the process. Keep on going. Do you have more questions, or we just keep on talking?
Yeah, anybody have questions right now about it?
Anyone can speak up, anyone can raise their hand. I'm happy to answer questions. When I started this phone call, I was saying I've been in the business now 2.5 years. I do predominantly buyers. I'm 60-40 right now, 60% buyers, 40% listings. My goal is always to get more listings, as it should be for all of us, but I enjoy working with buyers. I specialize in first-time buyers. I've done, of my last 5 deals, 3 have been relocation. And that boils down to more questions, whether it's relo or first-time buyers. It's just dialing down and learning what's important. So let's say they want to move in this month. Well, great. My next question for them is, what are you doing right now? Do you rent or do you own? And if the question is rent, okay, when does your lease end? And I get the question, sometimes to get the answer, well, it's easy if the lease ends now. They got to act. What if the lease ends next year, but they're just tired of being in a little apartment and they've got a kid or who knows what, they want to buy a house and need more space. Well, they always get kind of like, well, I got to break my lease. And I go, first thing, let's find out what's it cost to break your lease? What is the penalty for leaving the lease early? Do you know that? And if they don't, I encourage them the minute we finish the conversation to find out. And I learned this trick. I say, well, let's say they break their leases. Let's say it's $2,000. And they're unsure about having that money to come up with to break the lease. Well, I say, we can always write an offer on a house and include seller contribution in the offer. And maybe we can write in $2,000, and that $2,000 I get you there can help buy you out of this lease. Would that be something that you need? People love that idea. It's a great, fantastic way where if they can't get the money in time to break the lease, they can always ask a seller. It's really where that money goes to doesn't matter to the seller. It's just insignificant. So that $2,000 can be applied towards the house they're buying, or they can really just save that money and now they have $2,000 kind of saved up to buy out of their lease. So to me, I always ask that question, what do they need and how can I help get them there? So once they learn whether they're buying or selling, if they're selling, the question then becomes, how soon are you ready to list? Because based on that, that changes the whole conversation. Is their house a fixer-upper? Is their house ready to need to be painted, cleaned, etc.? And that dives into a whole nother world of questions. But as I'm asking these questions and I'm dialing down to the root of what they want, that's what all of our goals are, is to find out what is the most important to them, what, when, why, how, all those questions. Because if you don't do it, you're leaving something out, and that could be a missing piece that helps you later in the transaction. It helps you serve them, is what it's about. So for me, I started asking questions about, okay, well, great. You want to move in X number of months. Have you talked to a lender yet? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, great. How far has that gone? Is it going well? Sometimes I'll go, well, you have to talk to a lender. I don't really like the process. I'm not understanding the process. And that's when I recommend, I've got preferred lenders. One is obviously Reed here at Silverton in our office, but maybe you've got someone else. But you want a preferred lender that can answer questions. Because honestly, a lot of these things, it's not our job to answer those questions. And it's not our place to answer something and guess. I tell all my buyers, listen, that's the lender's responsibility to let you guide you through that process. And they go, what will my rates be? You go, well, I don't know your credit score. I'm not sure how your debt to income ratio. And honestly, me guessing, telling you is only doing you a disservice. So let's talk to somebody that you can trust, that can answer your questions and get us on the right track. Does that sound good? And the answer is yes. And I've learned that from Arthur and Julianne. You always ask questions you know the answer to. The answer is yes. Of course they want to have more information. Of course they want more help. They don't going to say no to that. They want to have the more information they gather, the better offer they can make. So for me, they've got a lender, great. Are you happy? Great. If you're not, let's talk about it. Why are you unhappy? What's wrong? Okay. Let's talk to Reed or to anyone else, Jeff, etc. Let's talk to them, spend that 15-minute conversation and help yourself. I said, because I'm here to serve you and so are they. And the most important thing is finding somebody who wants to work with you. So we had that conversation about that. Okay. Now the question becomes, the next step is, if they don't know how much they want to spend, they don't know if they can even afford to buy a house, the next steps are tricky because you can start asking a bunch of questions that might never apply. So what I say is first, I say what the most important thing for you is to learn what you can afford to buy. And here's why. I said, let's just use this number of $300,000 as an example. I pick any number out of my head, but if you kind of know the area they're looking for, if they're going to look in the heart of Buckhead, I'm not going to suggest $200,000 as the number, but you get the point. I make a realistic number. And let's say $300,000 is the number. What if it turns out we start searching for a house for 300? It turns out that you were approved for less than that. Well, you just wasted all this time looking for a house that you couldn't afford, and maybe gearing yourself and getting mentally prepared for something that wasn't going to be a reality. So then the flip side is this: what if we're looking at 300 and you're selling for a $300,000 house? We can really afford 325 or 350. That doesn't mean an extra bedroom for your kids or a fenced backyard or a better school district. So what's more important, just blindly searching or searching with information? And of course, the answer is with information, and everyone agrees to that. They're never going to argue it. So what I start doing is I start asking just generic questions, leaving the price out of the conversation. And I asked, like I said, when do you need to move? We already discussed that. Great. So if you think about what part of town you want to be in, and that can be towed two different directions. It could be the direction of they already live in Woodstock and they love it there and they're going to stay. Or they want to live East Cobb and get in the different school district. But they're coming from out of town and they don't know anything about Atlanta and they have no idea where to go. And that brings up a whole nother conversation, which we'll get to in a minute. So what I first do is, for a buyer, I say, okay, let's talk about your house. What's important to you? How many bedrooms do you need? And I just ask that generic question. Well, I need at least 3, or I need at least 4. Great, tell me why. I'm asking the question again, why, explaining it. Sometimes the answer is, well, no, we need a 4-bedroom, or I'd love to have a 5 because my parents come to visit a lot. We love to have a guest room so the 2 kids don't have to leave their room. Great. So you're happy with 4, but you really prefer 5. Okay, I'm writing all that down. Bathroom question, how many bathrooms do you need? Well, we got a teenage girl, she has to have her own bathroom. I totally get it. I bring my life into the story. I've got a daughter too. I totally get needing to have your own bathroom as a girl or a boy or whatever else, but I bring my life into the conversation. I think myself, I had put myself in their shoes. I explained, hey, when I was looking to buy a house, I had the same concerns. And they go, well, you know, how does that work then with the search? And I said, you know, everything we put in is dictated by another agent putting the information in. And a lot of times the information gets input incorrectly. I said, it's unfortunate that it does, but it does. I said, so I tend not to narrow a search too small because I don't mean to miss out on something. It's my job to help look along with you sometimes to find the right house. And if we dial that down too low, and I only send you 5, 10 houses, you're going to be discouraged and feel frustrated. I said, so let's leave it a little bigger. If you wanted 4, preferred 5 bedrooms, let's just search 4 for now, 4 and higher. Hopefully we find a great 5-bedroom, but maybe for all we know, there's a great 4-bedroom with an unfinished basement that would work for you. I have those kind of conversations and learn what's important. As I'm going along there, I might say, okay, so you're looking for a 4-bedroom or more. I make sure that I can find a bedroom with a attached bathroom for your daughter. Okay. Tell me, as you walk into your house, what do you envision? What is your perfect house? And that is a wide open question that can go in any direction, and you'll be ready to write all the answers down, because if they say open floor plan, well, we all know you can't search that on FMLS. There's no keyword for open floor plan. You know, that doesn't exist. But we're writing all those things down, so when you start looking and you send them results and you're kind of flipping through yourself, rapidly flipping through, or let's say you're in team meeting and we hear that R3's got a brand new house listed in that school district they want, and she says cute open floor plan that she loves to say, we all go, oh my gosh, I remembered that. It's a trigger for you just as much as it is for your client. Open floor plan, why is that important? Well, I love to cook. I love to be able to, you know, see my kids in the other room while they're doing their homework or watching TV, right? Can't search for that. We all know we can't, but it's good to know why. And it's good to know also when you start previewing homes for them, if you need to do that, you can cross homes off your list pretty quickly. If you're gonna go preview 5 homes in a day for them, and the first 3 are not open floor plan, you're in the door, you can quickly lap around and realize it's not what they want and walk out. And then report back to them the house at 123 Main Street, you loved open floor plan and didn't have it, but the house 3 doors down did. And here's what I found. So we're asking those questions. We're asking open floor plan. We're asking stuff like that. Things that you really can't quantify. Then also asking things like, imagine the backyard. What do you need? And the biggest things people say, I want a fence. Well, why do you want a fence? Well, I got dogs. I got kids. I want to be able to have privacy from my neighbors. The thing you have to remember to ask is, do you want fenced or fenceable? And it's fencing, as you'll learn on FMLS or Georgia MLS, whatever you search for, it is never right. It just isn't. For whatever reason, people just don't plug it in correctly. So I always ask that question. If they say fenceable, oh, they'll ask me, why? What do you mean by fenceable? I said, well, what if it's a great yard and there's no fence there? But it's a perfectly flat backyard. You could put a pool, you could put a playground, you could put a swing set, the dog could give a good dog run, but there's no fence. Would you still want the house? I go, well, yeah, it's a perfect backyard. I said, well, it didn't have the fence you asked for. And they go, oh. I go, exactly. We can always put a fence in later. You could always add a fence into the perfect backyard, right? The answer is yes. So I always say, maybe we don't narrow down right now and put fenced only. We put fenceable. Now, the flip side of that is, what if someone's tight and realize they don't have the money to make that work right away? They can't afford to put a fence in right from the start. Well, then maybe you ask that question. You feel them kind of wavering on it. And you say, you know what? If you're concerned about having that money to put the fence in after you move in, maybe we create a search that has the fence on there for you. And if it gets too narrow and too small, you can always change it and make it fenceable. But if fencing is important to you, I can clearly tell in your voice that it is, let's add it in there. By you having that conversation, it shows you're listening and you care. It shows that you're taking what's important to them and prioritizing it, especially in a search criteria, which isn't always accurate. I've been to many houses where it appears fenced and you get back there and it's not. And you've gone out there and made that effort to see the house with the client, and it's not what it said it was. By having this conversation with them now, it shows you're aware that things aren't always as they appear on the listing service. And it's not your fault if you get to a house one day and it's not the way it was described. You don't feel inferior that you get to a house at 123 Main Street and there's no fence there, but the agent checked the box there was. I don't ever feel bad about it. I apologize to them that it's incorrect, but I know it's not my fault that it's incorrect because I've asked the right questions and done the right things. And they know I've shown care and compassion the entire time, so I'm never blamed for it. They're frustrated at the other agent, but never me. And that's what you want. You want to build that trust. All right, so we've discussed bed and bath and fence and fenceable and open floor plans and all those kind of random variables. And you start asking them questions, things like, just dialing down. Do you prefer a newer home? Do you prefer a fixer-upper? Some people love the idea of buying a house at a lower price and making their own stamp on it. And as you ask those questions, you'll hear all kinds of things. Some people love the challenge and they prefer to spend less, knowing sweat equity can build them more. On the flip side, some people can't even wield it, don't know what a hammer is, and that's perfectly fine if they don't. And I always say, listen, I totally respect that. You're working, you work, your husband works, your wife works, your kids are in school. You don't have time to fix up that house, do you? I understand you want a move-in ready house. Let's understand why. Same thing. Same thing with a fixer-upper. Why? Well, if they're handy with things, maybe great. Maybe they're not handy, but they're not afraid to spend $1 on a contractor. And it's asking all those questions. Don't assume someone can wield a hammer, or don't assume someone even wants to wield a hammer to fix up their house. That's what our job is, to learn and listen and kind of just dial in to what's important to them. Do you have any questions, Amani, or any questions before I kind of keep on going? Anybody?
It sounds like you
There's
don't
in the
need
chat.
like
There's a
a,
chat. What's in the
yeah.
chat?
Oh, it's just Jen saying good job.
Yeah.
But do you have like a packet that you take with you, or like one that you show on Zoom?
So here's the part I've learned. When I first went, I would bring stuff with me, And now when I go on about, whether it's in person or over the phone, all I bring is a pen and a piece of paper. All I bring now. I bring nothing else. Now, I used to bring other things, and I think sometimes if you're going to meet them in person, then yeah, you may bring a few more things if you know they're looking in certain areas, et cetera. But for most part, when I sit down with them the first time, I don't, because I want to learn from them and listen to what they need. And I've learned that the more, this is me personally, everyone's different, and everyone's gonna have their own personal interactions with buyers and learn what's best for them. But I learned what's best for me is making the connection. That first phone call, that first in-face appearance is making connection. And if all I've got, for me, if all I've got is a pen and paper and I'm writing and I'm listening and I'm learning and I'm constantly looking at them, I'm writing and I'm looking up, I'm making notes and I'm looking back at them and I'm engaging them. My capture rate for buyers is, it's over 95% because I've made an effort to connect with them. That's what people want. People want service. I know it's convenient to go online and click pictures and all those things. And we all know it's great to have our world now where you can click buttons and it's at your doorstep the next day. But in a purchase of a house, pardon me, where it's the biggest purchase of their lives, they want reassurances that we're there for them. They want reassurances that we're listening what they want. That it's what they say is actually important to us. The minute we start viewing our clients as a transaction and not people, it's when we fail. That's the first time we fail. And honestly, that's your first step. That's your day one, is treating a client, like a customer, or like a friend, depending if it could be a friend of yours, is treating them and hearing them and what's important to them. And the minute you start checking boxes and start putting them into certain categories, you're losing the point of what you're trying to do. So as I'm sitting there listening to them, I'm talking to them, I'm constantly asking, do you have questions? What do you need to know? And so we've asked all these questions about what's important, fensible. We've asked about, do you need a basement? All those things we're taught, kind of dialing it down. And I'll ask them about, if I know that they're pre-approved or pre-qualified, they've already crossed that bridge. Say, okay, so tell me, if they already have it, if it's not through my own personal lender, my preferred lender, I don't know the number. So I'll ask, so tell me, what are you looking for? Well, we're looking up to 400. Great. Okay. And then is there a low point we're looking at? I mean, it's kind of some people will say, I don't know, 200, 250. Like, great, we'll use it. And if they don't answer, well, I'm not really sure. Well, it's kind of our job to start learning them when they start figuring out what area they're in. Well, if they're looking in East Cobb and you realize they need a 4-bedroom in the Walton School District, you're not finding a house for $100,000. So you can basically cross the stuff off your list. You can kind of raise the bar to a certain point anyway. But you learn what their price point is. And I encourage you to use this line. I use it all the time. And it always works, and they're always appreciative. And I said, okay, so your max budget is $400,000. Great. My goal is to find a house for you under $400,000 that you absolutely love. Let me ask you a question. I said, people list their houses wrong all the time, right? They price them incorrectly. And it does. We all know they do. People they ask too much money, or the house needs too much work, or who knows what, but the number's wrong. And I said, now if we're looking at 400 and below, and there's a house sitting on the market at 405 or 410, and it was the exact right house for you, at a fenced yard, open floor plan, had the 5th bedroom for your parents to come visit, had the basement for the man cave, the storage, the kids, whatever. But it was listed at 410, we would never see that house, would we? We wouldn't. You know the answer. Well, do you want to miss seeing that house? I'm like, no, I wouldn't want to miss that. I go, great. It's my job to find the house that are priced incorrectly, because it happens. I said, so I know your number is 400, but let's search up to 400, 420, 425, 415, somewhere, a number. It's kind of the higher the price point of the house, the larger gap you can make. I would say with, $200,000 house, you can't search up to 250. I'd probably say 220, 215, something like that. But I said, here's why. It's my job to find a house out there, might be priced incorrectly, that there's nothing wrong with it. But we all know the longer houses sit in the market, they become stale. And people imagine there's something wrong, even when there never is. So how great would that be if the $220,000 house is sitting there, or 320 house is just sitting there, and your budget was 300, when we got that house down to your price point, it was everything you wanted. Would you like that? The answer is yes. And so they said, great, let's create a search that goes above your number. And my goal is not make you spend your dollar. I'm not putting it above your number to push you beyond what you're comfortable with. I'm making a higher number so I can find value for you in a house. Does that sound good? The answer is yes. And invariably, what I find is lots of things happen. Number one, no one ever argues that. And everyone's always excited about that. I always love when I'm on a phone call with the husband and the wife, and one of the two of them like blurts out, "That's a great idea." And it makes me feel good about it. But customers want a deal. And if they know you're actively looking for something, it might be above what they want, but you have the confidence, depending on what it is, to bring it down, they're excited about it. And every deal is different. It's possible you'll never be able to bring a number down because maybe the market's too competitive. Maybe what they want is too narrow and that you can't bring it down, but you've shown you want to do it. You've shown you want to provide value for them and find something that everyone else is looking for. When every other agent's capping at 400, or capping at 300 or 350 or whatever, you're looking just above to find an opportunity. And buyers love that idea that you're actively looking to help them find something that no one else is doing. So I always say that, and everyone's always excited about it. Interesting thing with that is too, is sometimes buyers say their number is, let's say 400, and a 420 house comes online, and they want to buy it. And you're like, well, you said your number was 400. And you go, well, they go, well, we said 400, but we really were comfortable with 450. We were just hoping to get 400, but clearly there's nothing out there that works for us. And so it's one of those things where sometimes you open up their eyes to the market. I had a client once that we were looking at houses, and we looked at, I think, every house in East Cobb that had a pool that was in a certain price range. And we looked and looked and looked, and it was interesting and challenging. And I knew what they wanted, and they had to have a basement, and they had to have a finished basement, and they wanted a pool, and they wanted all these things. And what we were finding was all older homes, or homes that weren't, up to date or refreshed. And at one point, I was with the couple, and it's with their daughter, their adult daughter. And the daughter's like, she was frustrated. She's like, explain to me why you're not showing us the things that have this, and this. And I said, because they're $80,000 to $100,000 higher. And watching that look on their face was like, So it was like they had to either choose to spend more money or choose what their goals were, because the house didn't exist. We couldn't find that unicorn. You couldn't find that 5-bedroom, fully finished basement house with a pool in the perfect school district in East Cobb. They weren't there. They don't exist. So having an honest conversation with your client is important. And I didn't feel bad saying it, because they needed to know I wasn't failing them. The market didn't exist. And to me, being honest with your clients is always important. If what they want isn't there, we need to tell them it's not there. It's not our fault. And us being honest about it helps instill trust with them. So if they want all these things and they're not there, I flat out tell them it's not there. I said, here's what we need to do. We need to either change what we're searching for or change our price, because what we've looked and it's not there. Or you're willing to wait. And if you're willing to wait, it means we need to be willing to act. So the minute that house does come on the market and it is the perfect house, you already are pre-approved. You've already done all the stuff for the lender. You've already checked all the boxes we need to check so we can write a strong offer. What's important to you? And you put it back on them. Let them decide what's important. Do they need to raise the price to buy the house they want? Do they need to hold fast? Because they can't compromise on that. They can't go above 400. Or do they need to change what they're looking for or change the area? And that's what our job is, to keep just being honest with conversations and dialing down to what's important. And the more we do that, the more they trust us, and the more they want to give honest answers. And that's our goal, is to get honest answers, especially when you have a husband and wife and you're not sure if both of their answers are the same. So I'm going to teach you a trick I've done now with buyers that I can tell they're not on the same page. And sometimes it's hard as a married couple to have that conversation, because you're not sure what they want. You know what you want, and you're not sure if the stars always align. So I say, you want to play a game? And most people love to play games, so the answer is always yes again. So I hand them both a piece of paper, and this works better. This works. I've done this at a restaurant. I've done this in person at their dining room table, and I've done it over the phone. So, okay, each of you grab a piece of paper and a pen. And I want you to write the 5 most important things about this house for you. And I say, I'll play along too. And I'll write them the 5 most important things that the buyers usually want. And I say, let's take a minute and we'll write it down. So I always make a game of it. All right, sitting side by side, no cheating, cover your paper like you're in school. Don't anyone cheat off your test. But what's important to you? And that's all I'm asking. I'm not asking what you think is important to your spouse or to your significant other. I'm asking what's important to you. And we play that game. And I go, okay. And we'll go back and forth. And I start, give me your number 1. And I hear it. And when they say it, if it's on the other person's list, invariably they're going to go, oh, that's on my list too, because they can't help it. They're so excited that there's a match. Great. You both want an open floor plan. And then I ask the next one, okay, what's on your list? They go back and forth, and there'll be something that will pop up that they haven't discussed. Doesn't always happen. When it does, it's a great moment, because when a husband or a wife says something and the other person doesn't realize it, there's a gap in communication. You help close that gap. And that's an important thing. It's an important tool that we bring to the table for them. When the one person says, I really, really want a great back deck. Well, the other person's eyes lit up and said, they're kind of like, really? I didn't know that. Why? And the wife's like, well, I always would love to entertain when people come over. Or the husband's like, I want to have a great grill and go out there and grill on the weekends or during football season or whatever else. And it creates a conversation. Well, you can't always search for it on the listing. It doesn't matter. We're not asking questions sometimes just to plug it into a program. We're asking questions to learn what's important to each of them. And we'll go down the list, and they'll say, what's on your list? And I go, well, most important things buyers always want is, they always want open floor plan. They always want great school district. They always want a flat little backyard. They always want, a larger master bathroom or a larger master bedroom or whatever. And I kind of name some things. And I'll start naming things, and they might not have thought of that. Oh, you're right, a flat backyard. We need that for put a playground for the kids. Or we might want to build a pool, maybe not now, but maybe in 4 or 5 years when our kids are older and it's a little safer for them. So you throwing some things out might jog something they've not written down as their top 5. Or maybe stars align and everything works out and they're all on the same page and we're great, but it's just one more conversation. It's you showing care to your client. That's all we're trying to do. And so when I have these conversations, I play the top 5 game. It just helps me learn each person's motivation in it. So when you go look at a house and you realize the wife loves the open floor plan and the husband really loves the great back deck, when you're previewing a house, it helps you. When you're showing houses, it definitely helps you, because then if you've done the work beforehand, the house at 123 Main Street has the great back deck. You can't wait to show the husband. So when you get there, you say, hey, the back deck you liked, this is one of the best ones I've seen. Here it is. So that's where my game of top 5 tends to work because I learn more about my clients and what's important to them. So any questions? I mean, need to ask anything? I'm talking. It's up to you guys. I can talk for an hour. I can talk for hours. So
I think the game is a really good idea. Not to tell mom about that.
it's people like to do it, and it's even more fun if you're sitting there and you kind of goof off and joke about it, and you just make it silly, you make it fun. It doesn't matter, and I always tell them and I encourage this. I go, be honest, and it's okay if your lists don't match. And I sometimes say it's great if they do. I said, but sometimes just as great if they don't, because you need to learn about what's important to your spouse or significant other. I said, and sometimes we forget to have those conversations about what's important because we're focusing on maybe some other things, and we're so dialed into the open floor plan or so dialed into the school district, we forget to mention the fact that I really want a basement to build a great media room one day. I would love to have a media room. But you're so focused on the one big thing, you forget all the little things that kind of add up into it. So the game for me is a big thing. So let's say that these are first-time home buyers. Let's dive into that route. But the first-time home buyer, you need to basically be prepared to explain the entire process and be prepared to tell them you'll answer questions as many times as they want over and over again. There are no bad questions. And if they ask a question you know the answer to, you don't know, never make up an answer. It is the worst thing you could do, because they're gonna find out later you were wrong. And so you spoke with conviction that you thought you knew, but you didn't. So why lie to them? Why tell them something you don't know? It's okay not to know. There's a lot of things I don't know, not just in real estate. I just admit I don't know it. I don't know, and I'm going to find out is the greatest response you can give if you don't know the answer. Or I don't know, and here's who you should talk to. That's a lender question. I respond to that a lot. That's a lender question. I don't know how your credit score will affect this rate or that rate. I don't know. I don't want to guess. And then later on, they don't get qualified because I told them, go ahead and buy that furniture, buy that car, buy that whatever, which I would never do, but you get the point. I'm not afraid to defer that question to the authority in the matter, whether it's a closing attorney with a question about something or a lender. And if not, if it falls on me, I learn the answer and get back to him as soon as possible. So when you're working with the buyer, I think you need to realize is, what's the preferred form of communication? How do they both prefer to answer things? Is it, and this is really important because it might not be the same for both parties. Is it emails, phone calls, texting? How do they prefer to talk to you? Now, the thing is, if they don't want to text you, then don't text them. Unless it's truly, truly important. Like you called them, you can't reach them, then you text them. But I also have some clients that don't prefer not to text. It's all phone calls. Or they work all day long. They can't get on the phone. They don't bother with the phone beeping with text, but they check emails, and they can check emails while they're working. They can quickly get back to me. Or they'll say, if it's truly important, call me. If it's not, just text or email. Great. But you learn how they want to be talked, how they want to be spoken to. And you got to write these things down because you're going to forget. You need to keep a little file, and I keep actually a little notebook, just a simple book I bought. Do I have one with me? Don't. I think it's in the car. I just bought a little binder from Target. It's simple. You can buy it from Office Depot, whatever. And then they give each buyer a little folder. So let's say I'm talking to Amani later, and I realize, oh my gosh, she's not replying. Well, dummy, she said she won't reply to phone calls. She works all day. She can't pick up the phone. She's at the CDC. Text her if it's important. But if my notes are there, I can remember Amani once texts during the day, phone calls after 6 p.m. at night. Or if it's an emergency, blast all three. Phone call, email, text. In due diligence period, you can't afford to wait for a response. You got to get an answer. And so if my client says, I prefer only phone calls or only text, I said, well, just so you know, when there's certain deadlines, you need to be prepared for communication. So if I don't reach you by this means, I might reach out to other means to make sure you know we need to speak. Does that sound good? The answer is once again always yes. But you've told them, you've learned from them how they want to communicate, and you've stressed how you need to communicate with them on important moments. So now it's on them to be available in their preferred method on those certain days and those certain deadlines. Part of our job is to put some of this back onto them. Part of our job is to hold them accountable with what they want. We can't hold their hand and do everything, because if we do, they're not actually involved in the process. We want our buyers to be involved in the process. And one of the best ways to do that is explaining the process simply. And that boils down to, if it's someone's already bought or sold a house, I ask them, do you remember the 3 deadlines for buying a house? And if they do, great. What are they? What are the 3 things when we buy this house you can get out and get your earnest money back? And the question, and then they kind of, their eyes get wide, or they go, you remember what earnest money is? And if they, and it's okay if you don't. And I explain to them. If it's first time home buyer, of course you explain what earnest money is. They've already bought a house before. I say, remember the 3 deadlines? And they'll go, oh, I remember there's an inspection one. And yeah, I don't remember the rest. That's okay, great. Let's talk about it. Due diligence. That's your time period to walk away from buying this house. Wake up one day, the sky's raining, it's raining, or the sky's blue, or you don't want to buy the house. You don't even want to live in Georgia. Back out of the deal. Earnest money back in your pocket. And you get it back, make sure you tell them 7 to 10 days later. You don't get it back instantly. They can't terminate a deal and all of a sudden Sherry hands you back the earnest money check and the check's back in their pocket. They get it back 7 to 10 days later. So just remind them that. But I say, okay, earnest money, right. We can get your money back during the earnest money period. The next is appraisal. And I discussed that, et cetera, et cetera. With first-time home buyers, it's an entirely different process. You need to literally break it down step by step all throughout. That way they don't feel confused or afraid of what you're telling them. And the more you tell them, the calmer they feel, and the calmer they feel, the more they trust you. And the more they trust you, the more they refer you. And that's what we have to remember. If we do great and treat our clients at the highest level, they'll refer you. I tell every client that I get, I promise you when we get to the closing table, you'll have understood the process. You'll be happy with how it went down. And you can't wait to refer me to a friend or family so I can give them the same level of service. And the greatest honor you can give me is to let me help someone else. And I always say that. And I get referrals all the time at the closing table. I promised you I would do it, and here you go. My coworker Brenda wants to buy a house. Great, that's awesome. I've already told her all about you. Here's a number, give her a call. Fantastic, I can't wait to help her. So the more we work and the more we connect with our clients, the more they want to refer you to family and friends, and that's how you build your business. It honestly is. But it starts with questions and dialogue. And if you don't do that, you're going to have one transaction and only one transaction. They'll close the deal. They were happy. They bought the house. It all worked out, but they didn't feel they were connected with. Or maybe you did all you could and they still didn't connect, and that's going to happen too. So it's okay, but it puts you in practice for the next client you get, for the next buyer you get. The more questions you ask, the more you dial down, the better you can serve them. Okay, so you found your perfect house for your client. They love it. They want to buy this house. I always ask them, as we're having this conversation and we're going to write offers, etc., I say, if you lost this house for this much amount of money, would you be upset about it? And let's say the house is worth $325. I said, if I told you you lost this house for $330, would you be upset? And they're like, yeah. Well, then your number's not 325, is it? Your number is 330. Or if you'd be fine with losing it, then great. You're fine with that. But when we're working with buyers and we're having that conversation, those conversations happen from the very first day. The buyer's consultations we have with them set up the entire rest of the process. So I encourage you, when you have a chance to talk to somebody, go as deep as you can, write it all down. So later on in the deal, 'cause I know I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm saying we're already finding a house, but the point is, when you've already found the house, you've already asked the questions, and you can refer back to what you asked them those very first few conversations. Well, you told me that this, has anything changed? Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, maybe they forgot, but it shows you haven't. And I love that when I refer back to something and you remember that? Well, I took good notes. I paid attention. I listened. I learned. I personally brought a pen and paper. That's what I brought, to listen and learn. That's just me. But I made that connection the very first phone call, the very first face-to-face meeting. So later on in the process, I was able to recall and serve them at a higher level. And that's what our job is as buyer's agents, is to serve the highest level we can. All right, any questions? Anything, Imani, any direction you go in the last 10 minutes?
I guess just how do you end the buyer's consultation most of the time? Like, do you set them up on a search, like as soon as you're done, like on FMLS?
As soon as we're done, good, I'm glad you got me there. If let's say they're not pre-qualified or they don't have a lender, it's okay. The next thing you need to do is you need to call the lender. Make that 15-minute phone call. Here's how I recommend. Today is Monday. We're going to touch base on Wednesday or Thursday and see what you learned. And obviously, if they talk to the lender will send you the pre-qual letter anyway, so you'll know they've talked to them. If they haven't, you set a deadline for them to do it, or you're going to fall back up again. If I already know their number, they've already gotten pre-qualified, I set a search that day, instantly that day. I don't wait. Because get the information in their hands, the sooner they can trust me. And so when I do that is I say, all right, I'm going to send you, create a search for you and send that to you. And I said, would you like that? The answer is yes. I said, great. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to send you a buyer brokerage agreement, especially if it's not a face-to-face thing. If it's face-to-face, I will sometimes I'll bring a paper, but I'll also bring a buyer brokerage with me to sign face-to-face right then and there. So I do bring that. But most stuff now is online or it's virtual. I mean, I think my last 10 buyers, 9 have been non-face-to-face clients. And of those 9, 6 have been only phone calls. I didn't meet them until I showed them a house. So I say, as I'm answering all these questions and I'm providing value and I've listened and I've learned and I've done all these things, I still haven't even addressed the buyer brokerage yet. I've still not even addressed them signing a contract with me because I've wanted to make them feel like I was their trusted realtor. I was their trusted friend by only discussing them and never discussing me or discussing business. So the last thing I'll say is I'm going to send over a search, but I'm also going to send over a buyer brokerage that allows us to work together. And say, and I'll go, and here's why. And I say, well, obviously, this shows my commitment to you, to helping you, that I've already shown to you, to help you find the right house for your family this week, this month, this year, whenever. And I said, it also shows your commitment to me that I'm going to represent you the best of my ability, help you find a house. Now, I always check the box that the sellers don't pay the difference in commission. That's just what I do. But I remind them, I say, when you use an agent to buy a house in the state of Georgia, you don't pay me $1. The listing agent, the sellers pay my commission. So you have me and all my resources to help you. And that's what I'm here for. And I said, I'm going to send over the agreement. We can walk through it together. If you'd like, if you're comfortable with it, you can sign it. And I said, and honestly, let's say in a week you realize I'm not the right agent for you, or in a month. I said, I'm okay if you want to terminate the contract. I said, it's never happened to me before because I provide great service to my clients and I pride myself in that. But I recognize if I'm not the right fit, I want you to find the right agent who is. But before you ever did that, I would hope you talk to me first, like we're doing right now, so I can learn how to best serve you. Does that sound good? Well, the answer is yes. And you send them a buyer brokerage and they sign it. And if they don't sign it, that's fine. When I call them back on the Wednesday or Thursday, I say, great, you got pre-qualified. Let's set up that search. remember I sent the buyer brokerage over so I can represent you. I can help you. I said, because we start finding the best house. I don't show houses without a buyer brokerage. I don't. I won't do it. I said, because I'm working to represent you. I'm giving my time to you. I'm asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to work together. At that point, if they've already gone the effort getting pre-qualified and they've already gone the effort of having multiple conversations, they already trust you. It's just you finishing, it's just you closing the deal. It's you having confidence in yourself to ask for the buyer brokerage. Not demand it, but to push to get it. Because if they won't give it to you, then you're gonna waste effort on somebody who might not want to use you. And what good will that do you? You're pouring effort into something that might not bring a return. And if our goal is to be strong agents, we need to show our clients how strong we are in our negotiating ability and seal a deal and get the buyer brokerage. So I always request it. I always say I'll talk through it, and I get it. It's important to get it and not to wait to show that first house. So I always end it. If I'm in person, I get them to sign right then and there. Here's a pen. Here's the buyer brokerage. Let's sign. If you're not in person and it's all these Zoom calls, you can't force them to sign anything. But you can do is show you're coming from contributions. They feel that you're the right agent for them. And that's the challenge we have right now in this world, is that if it's not a face-to-face meeting, it's convincing someone you have value. And we do have value. And we're taught at KW all the things to say and do that provide value to our clients. And the more you can say them and spit them back out without thinking, because you just know what to say and how to say it, and it comes with script practice, etc. When it comes time to sign a buyer brokerage, they will gladly sign a buyer brokerage, because they know you are the right person that will fill in all the gaps when they're scared, confused, overwhelmed. And you could think of that a buyer might have. You're the agent who's going to listen, because you actually asked them, how do they want to communicate? You've asked all those things, what's important and why. Why would they not sign with you? You've only shown that you're looking out for them since the very first phone call you made. You've never treated them like a dollar. You treat them like a person. And that's all we want in this world, is be treated like people. So when I work with buyers and I have that buyer's consult, virtually or in person, and I always end with the contract, never start with it. I provide value up front and then finish it after I've provided value and service that I'm the only choice they're ever going to make. And if they still won't sign it, then I just follow up every week. And then sometimes, you've done what you could. They're not going to sign, or maybe they'll sign later. You don't know. But I don't lose sleep over it. I lost a few hours of conversation, but I've provided value, and I'll let them come to their own terms. And I've had that where I've lost some people because they never were serious buyers anyway. They were more looky-loos and kind of want to just see what's on the market. They're happier looking on Zillow and Realtor.com anyway. You're just clicking buttons. But the people who want connection and service will always choose us because we provide it. And we're not Zillow. We're not an ad you click a button on and you get assigned a random agent to call you out of the clear blue. So if they don't sign right away, but you keep providing value, follow up the next week. Make a date that you'll follow up every Tuesday. Hey, I know you're still thinking about buying the house. Tell you what, I'm going to follow up next Tuesday. Oh, you're out of town next Tuesday? Great, enjoy your vacation. Well, actually, I've learned that mistake once. They were out of town, but they were going to a funeral. So they say, great, enjoy your vacation. But if they're not going out of town, great, when you come back, let's talk on this day. And I call them on that day. Hey, Chris with Carl Williams, I promised you I'd call you on the 28th. It's the 28th. I'm here to help. What can I do? If they're still not ready, great. I'm going to call you again the following week. I'm going to call you again, and I'm going to call you again, and I'm going to call you again until they say no. So when they say no, fine. But sometimes young people's motivation is, sometimes they're scared. Sometimes they just are unsure. But if we show we're willing to help on their terms, then it works. And it's all, so every phone call I end with, I'm going to set the next time I want to talk to them. And sometimes it's to get them to sign, sometimes just to talk. If they're going to sign the buyer brokerage and we're looking at houses, hey, I'm going to follow up again next Monday, on Thursday, headed into the weekend to see if any houses are popped up that you like. So let me leave one last thing before it's time to get off. I always say, well, you and I have been talking today. My phone has gone off. My emails have been buzzing for the last hour. And if you've noticed, I never picked my phone up. I've never even checked it. I said, that's because I'm here to serve you. Now, if you call me and I don't answer right away, it could be with another client. I could be showing houses, it could be with my family. I say, I encourage you to leave a message, whether it's text, email, whatever, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I say, because the same service I showed you by not picking my phone up, I do it to every customer I'm with. So if I'm with somebody showing houses, I'm not going to keep picking my phone up to check what you need. Now, I said, if we're up against due diligence or a major deadline, then of course, I make sure every party that's involved knows that I've got to stop this phone call and jump on something else. But I show them that what's important is communication. That this phone sits quietly until I'm done talking to you, whether it's a Zoom call or a phone call or anything else, face to face. When you're showing houses, the phone gets put away. Our job with a buyer is to connect with the buyer, is to make them feel heard. So I think it's important to learn how they want to communicate and then show them that you value their communication by putting your stuff away until it's time to talk. And a lot of times I'll get a message and I'll say, listen, I can't talk now. I'm teaching a class till 2 o'clock. I'll call you after 2 o'clock. You can't drop what you're doing every single time to take care of something. If you set the expectations early for both parties, it makes for a better transaction. They don't feel neglected and you don't feel like you've abandoned them. That sound good?
Yeah, sounds great. Any last questions, guys?
Anybody have any questions at all? I'll answer anything. And if I've got an office in the building, it's on the first floor near the kitchen. If you ever need anything, Chris.VanZant, make it all one word though, at kw.com. I'm on ALC, so if you have any concerns about what you want Quan to be, what we need, if you're not sure who to talk to about things, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer your questions or find out. If I don't know, I'll find out. That was one thing we learned in the diversity meeting, was that people had questions they didn't know who to go to, not just on issues all across our office. So if you've got a question and you don't know who to talk to, please reach out to me and I'll find out the right answer so you don't feel left out. You feel part of our office. I've thrived personally because I've dialed into this office. I am at home right now, but I do have an office at work and I'm in there and I love it because I'm involved in what's going on. Oh, here, I'll type it out. Someone just asked me in the chat. It's Chris.VanZant. It's VANZANT. I'm not sure to type in the box and reply. Chris.VanZant at kw.com. Whoever the iPhone person asked that, I don't know your name, but I'd be happy to help answer questions. I teach Ignite, so you're welcome. I'm teaching Ignite coming up here end of this month. One of the classes, how to negotiate. I love negotiations. Usually teach how to find the buyer class as well. I've done that about 3 or 4 times. So happy to answer questions, ALC or otherwise, but I'm happy to help people grow. Because people help me grow. And there you go. Hey, Nigel. Sure, man. Happy to answer questions for you. Here, I'll type my phone number in too. Into the box, 678-428-7726. So anyway, yeah, happy to answer questions about anything. I am successful and proud to be successful because of what Quan taught me. I did not build this by myself. I built it because people poured into me, including people like Amani, who, when I had questions, she and I would find out answers together, and that was the best part. So you're welcome, Nigel. I encourage you to never be afraid to grow. The more you can learn, the better you'll be. And I'm successful because I listened and learned from other people. So take me up on that. If you ever have questions, I'm happy to help. It's the way we grow here. The rising tide lifts all boats. I'm not fighting for your slice of the pie. The odds are, I'm sure on Facebook we might have some similar friends, but I never think that helping you hurts me in any way. Me helping you only helps you. I just truly believe that. You need to remember that. I'm never going to compete for your business, your clients. I'm only here to help.
Chris, your screen is frozen. Yeah, I think we lost him. So if you guys have any other questions for him, he's put his email and phone number in the chat. It's also on the office roster that Kimberly sends out on Fridays. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the call. But let me know if you have any questions, okay? Bye, guys.